6 degrees of Kevin Bacon on the internet is like,
That's right.
how many clicks does it take to get to porn?
Yep, not
The
many.
answer is not many.
Turn your filter off and you're there. Doesn't take much. Be very careful with your search words. Okay, we're live now.
Wow.
We came in on that one. We haven't.
If you're not on the if you're not on the Patreon, you're really not gonna say. I don't want to say missing out, but you're missing something, man.
Yeah, you're definitely missing something. Something is out there for you. Let's sync it up real quick.
I'm
You're
not
ready?
recording yet.
Oh no!
Not ready. This is not it. Not it. Hold on.
Professionals.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 62. All right, ready.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. No.
Ah! Such chaotic energy.
I think it's your turn.
Okay.
It's your turn to do the intro, I believe.
You know, it's pretty neat. I just heard that Roll20 is bringing Cyberpunk Red to it. We could play Cyberpunk on Roll20.
God, we could. Oh.
We can customize our girth.
I'm so excited for the Ding Dong RPG.
They brought the Ding Dong RPG to Roll20, y'all.
They
Get
got all
ready.
that big hog, that good big hog technology.
Welcome to Big Hogs
On a
United.
digital table type. Welcome to Chapel Bell Curve. We talk about football here occasionally.
Hogs,
And
Arkansas.
Big
That's
Hogs.
a thing.
Arkansas. Yeah, Whooping Suey, apparently. This is a UGA football podcast about statistics and whatever we want it to be about, which is often
That's
the
correct.
stupidest of many options. Similar to Occam's razor, Jesus Christ. Similar to Occam's razor, where the most likely explanation is the simplest, the most likely explanation for anything that happens in this podcast is the stupidest. So, welcome. Today we are here to review. We're going to record our review episode for the latest tilt between our glorious University of Georgia Bulldogs with their beautiful flowing hair.
Just
As they win more, their hair just gets longer and longer.
so many
like some sort
Vandegriffs out there.
Some sort of canine Samson, bereft of a Delilah, charging through the night onto the next temple to be destroyed.
JT's
Anyway,
hair just tends to get flatter and flatter, and like I saw him at the end of the game this episode of football, and his hair was just like parted like here, and it was just like
you know, I gotta say, the past few seasons of Georgia football have been sort of a disappointment on and off, but this one's really killing it.
Mhm.
I really feel like if they can stick the dismount on this season finale we have coming up,
it could be pretty good.
You know, this will be an award-winning. Yeah, it could be a good season.
It could be a good one to wrap
right.
up the series on. Really, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be a sequel.
Let's
We can
just
say
shut it down.
Shut down.
To that, you know.
Cut it while
We're
we're
good.
ahead. All right, ready?
Ready, set. Oh my God, Bo! Somebody just posted that Bo Nix is out for the rest of the year.
Did you get hurt?
Yeah, apparently. That really bums me out. Who am I gonna make fun of? Anyway,
I guess Florida.
let's start.
Yeah, if they get rid of Dan
Yeah,
Mullen, we got nothing. We got nothing anymore. Who can we bully?
Well, we'll find a way to hate him.
That's true. Okay. Where will he go next? He's going to go to Liberty or something. It'll be perfect. Ugh.
No, he's gonna play tight end at Georgia.
Dan Mullen?
Oh, I thought you were talking about Bo Nix.
No. No, he's going to go to Liberty. Dan Mullen's going to go to Liberty, and his wife can kiss all those boys.
He's gonna be like an offensive control coach for the Jets or something.
Mm,
I don't
Yeah.
even. Not even I hate him that much.
no.
All right,
Okay.
let's start recording.
Okay.
Get the intro.
Okay. Welcome to Chapel Bell Curve, a stats-focused podcast about UGA football. I'm Justin,
And I'm Nathan.
and we're talking about football today, as we tend to do. We're talking about the game that happened this past weekend against the Tennessee Volunteers over in Neyland Stadium. I hope that everyone had a lovely weekend. It ended lovely. It was a little cold, a little warm, a little bit everything, but you know what? Came out with a win. It's still Sunday.
Yeah.
Feels good. Going into the new week, feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, et cetera, et cetera.
41-17 against one of your historical rivals will do that for you.
Not too bad. Not too bad at all. How was your
Yeah, not too
experience,
bad at
Nathan?
all.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what the heck you were up to? And
Yeah,
how
let's
it
talk about
went?
our experiences. Well, first I want to acknowledge my beautiful red hair king co-host, who I got to watch this game with. He came over to my house. That is Justin and his beautiful wife Anna, and that was a very good experience because whenever I watch the game at home and it's just me and my wife, we just spiral because I get really anxious and I clam up, and then she gets anxious because I'm anxious. And Justin and Anna were just such beautiful presences in our home, and they made us. Anna made us. I believe she called them fall. What were they? Fall mimosas.
Fall mimosas. Yeah, it was just a little bit of champagne and apple cider, and then it was rimmed with all of the pie spices that you would want. It was fantastic. A little apple garnish.
Yeah, so it was so good to see my beautiful red-haired king. I'll tell you, I think this is the best game watching experience as like when I was at home watching a Georgia game, not in redcoats, that I've ever had. I have not always had the best adaptive coping strategies with watching Georgia football from home. And it was interesting to be around someone who I know is as big a fan of me, who wasn't like doubled over, like throwing up into his mouth the entire time. It was very powerful to see. I had a positive role model having Justin there. It was weird to me. We could talk more about this. Like, I didn't really ever feel any existential dread about this game. In the first half when we went down in the first quarter, there was a lot of stuff on Twitter that was like, we're going to lose this game. And I don't know why I didn't think that. I just didn't think that. We just were more talented than them. Mm-hmm. And so it was just kind of a weird experience. Like, I was at home instead of at the game. This is the first UT game I've missed in a while because I hate them a lot and I like to see them lose. But it was just sort of surreal. I was like, who is this? Who is this man I've become where I'm not... I don't feel like we're going to lose every time they do anything positive. I don't know. I would say I have like a Sisyphusian, or even maybe like, what's the word? Who's like the highest point of hubris in mythology? I guess an Icarusian.
Probably Icarus.
I have an Icarus level of confidence about this team right now. I will say one thing that's important to note is that my wife Samantha and I lived in Knoxville for a couple of years. My wife. And for various reasons, Samantha has had some pretty bad experiences with the University of Tennessee that don't really bear going into at this juncture. But anyway, she hates Tennessee.
Oh yeah,
she hates Tennessee the way I hate Florida. Like, it is, and you don't see that kind of juice coming out of her tiny little body frame. But like when she gets going, like she was like in rare form this weekend. She hates Tennessee.
It was incredible.
Holy crap! Every time they would show like the blimp shot of the stadium, she would just another like beautiful, just terror-inducing like torrent of rage came out of her mouth, and I was so proud of her that she got to be there as we sacrificed them in her name or whatever. What was your experience like? I know that you had sort of like your nightmare professional scenario this past week.
I did, yeah. Well, yeah, I did get to spend the game with y'all, which was really nice. We had a great time. My dog came over too, and so Pepper had a very calming presence. I know. She tried to hang out with the cats, didn't work out. That's okay. You win some, you lose some, Pepper. But I know that the other dogs, the dogs we watched on the TV, did not lose some, and that was very good. But it was very nice. It was nice to spend a game with y'all. I know Sunday today. No, it was. When was it? Now that it was Saturday morning. Okay, yeah, the whole weekend's blending together now. Saturday morning, went out to see. I stopped for a work thing. The school district that we partner with here in Clark County, which is the Clark County School District. For those of you keeping tabs on us, we had a table at an event they were running, and so I just dropped in to go see like the staff that was working the event, and also just see other partners because it was a really big event. And I ran into a school counselor at one of the schools that we work with, named Rob. And Rob stopped me, and we were catching up for a little while. And Rob had done a lot of really great volunteer work with us last year, and we were very thankful for Rob. And but then he was like, "Oh, and I've also been, And I knew exactly the words that were going to come out of his mouth next. I've been listening to Chapel Bell Curve. And so in those moments when that happens, I don't talk about the podcast I make, the big dumb podcast I make in any professional circles, because I don't want people to ask me, how can I listen to it? I'll let them come about it in their own way. That's fine with me. But Rob had found it on his own, and then we talked about it a little bit, and I was like, just trying to feel out the situation. Like, I hope this is good. I hope he likes it. And he did tell me it's very good. And he's like, you guys do a great job. And plus, you don't say anything bad. Like the last few episodes, you were very clear about, with Dan Mullen, you didn't say anything about him being a piss baby. It was just the fact that you weren't saying it. You were very clear that you weren't saying it. And even if you were saying it, it would be fine because you weren't the one saying it. And he went through the whole rigmarole of the Dan Mullen thing. And I was like, okay, we're on the same team. we're on the same page here. This is very good. So, but thank you, Rob, for turning that potentially nightmare scenario into a very positive one. And I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope you enjoy a little shout out here as well. So, thank you for that. But let's talk a little bit about the game itself. What do you say, and how it went, statistically speaking?
So from a statistical standpoint.
Yes.
I mean, it was really interesting. I normally can't get on Twitter during the games because I'm doing too much stuff, or just Stanford has horrible reception, and there's often a disconnect. Well, Twitter's not real life. Twitter's not real life. Twitter's not real life. But even more so, there's often a disconnect between my experiential feelings about how the game is going when I'm at the stadium, and then when I look back through my timeline, it's like just a radically different experience. And so it was interesting seeing it in real time, because the moments where we were the most worried, when we were like down a touchdown, or then we were down 3, it was like 10-7 or whatever, in those moments, UGA still had a 76% win expectancy, win probability. So it's really like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, at what point it was a very exciting game, I think from our experiential viewpoint of like watching it in sort of like chronological time as we must experience games, right? But from the standpoint of like how exciting was it on the whole, without the sort of like the first thing is the most important bias that we have when we consume media, I don't really know. I mean, it had a game excitement index of 1.43, which is not very exciting. It was very boring in the second half in many ways. It was weird because it was like, when you're playing against Tennessee, you always expect to take a weird injury, so it wasn't boring. Like, it was very high stress, and it was always like, well, they could come back at any time, or they could come back at any time. But it really felt like, especially going into the fourth quarter, that it was sort of like, okay, this is all over but the shouting. I mean, UGA had somewhere between like a 97 and 99% win expectancy all the way through the fourth quarter, right? And so my first statistical takeaway is just like, this game is a very good example of why looking at the stats after the fact can often be very important, because a lot of the times the way we feel about the game based on our emotions having watched it, and our experiences of seeing it sort of unfold before us in real time, and what the stats say that was happening in the game, are not similar, right? Yeah. And a lot of people who were very smart about football, smarter than me about the technicalities and the experience of playing football, had said that coming into this game, like, it's going to take Georgia a series or two to adjust to the pace that Tennessee plays with. And you can see kind of where that adjustment ticks in, right? It's like Tennessee's third drive, about I guess what would be 300 seconds into game time, which is like
it started to come back up.
5 minutes into the fourth quarter, or into the first quarter. Coming into Tennessee's third drive, they had a win expectancy of, I guess, 22%. UGA had a 78% win expectancy, and then by getting close to the end of the fourth quarter, or getting close to the middle of the first quarter, UGA had a 91% win expectancy. And those 20 percentage points were basically, I think, not only like UGA's offense figuring a couple of things out, but also just UGA's defense figuring out how to defend Tennessee's offense, right? And I think once we took away a couple of key plays, or we got better at defending a couple of key plays, one of them was that kind of funky inverted wide receiver screen that they were running to the outsides, which they were holding on every time they threw it. When UGA figured out how to beat those blocks and beat those frankly holds, and take away the early first down yards that they were getting on that play over and over again off of the RPO, then they instantly were a far less effective offense, right? And regardless of whether or not of my personal opinions on that play, which I think it's like kind of bad when your offense is predicated on a play that basically forces your wide receivers to hold against every play. but still, once we had sort of like figured out the big things that they were going to do and we'd adjusted to the pace, this is a game that really went from being very exciting to not very exciting at all pretty rapidly, right? And it bears out in the final numbers, right? UGA had a total EPA of 13.58. Tennessee had a total EPA of negative 8.86. Now, that's not some of the big blowouts that we've had this year where it's like, South Carolina had a negative 21 EPA, like, or whatever it was, but it is, I mean, that's a significant win, right? That's a big win on the scoreboard and also an equally big win statistically. Like, so for instance, defensively, UGA's defense, right? Tennessee ran 70 plays, but UGA had a stop rate of 49%. So basically, UGA got the stop that they needed. Stop rate is sort of almost like defensive success rate. It's kind of like that. It's basically like how often is the offense like doing what they need to do. And so UGA got the stop that they needed on almost half of Tennessee's plays, right? And that is not the hallmark of an explosive or even functional offense, which Tennessee has been to this point this year, right? I mean, UGA had 49% successful plays of EPA greater than 0. Tennessee had 43%, 41% passing, 47% running for Tennessee. So it was a game that, like, Tennessee was certainly more in than most of the games that we've played this year, but it was also a game where, I mean, the numbers at the end of the day tell the story, right? If you have negative 7.19 EPA cumulatively on the day offensively, you're not going to win many games, right? Negative 2.76 special teams EPA. I mean, that's a pretty, I don't know, emphatic win on UGA's part. But I don't know how much it felt like that for a lot of the game for UGA fans, and a lot of that has to do with our unprocessed psychological trauma. But still, I mean, I think this is a good example of, like, box scores can be therapy.
They can be. They really can
Put that one on my tombstone. I mean, is there anything you're seeing? We're looking right now at our Game on Paper box score. If you go to gameonpaper.com/CFB, you can find it there, and I'll throw the link out.
It's very good.
In our Discord.
Very, very good.
For those of us, I'll put it in the stats channel in our Discord right now. And
I will say, so yeah. So for most of these, whenever I look at the stats, like, there's a few things we can look at it. It's just like, well, that's a defensive domination. And while that is true for this game as well, there are some things that I think we should point out, because we have been naysayers in a sense, with regard to our friend, the mailman Stetson Bennett, and I feel like in a way we have given in to the quote-unquote QB situation to some extent, but there are some stats I think in this box score that are the way they are because he is such a talented game manager, which we are here to eat crow. I'm here to stuff foot in mouth and say it today. So
let's calm down. I don't know if I'm here to eat crow.
You're right. We're not eating crow yet. We'll say some nice things. Yeah. So the numbers that I'm actually kind of referencing here, for instance, under defensive tackles for loss generated, for instance, like, I think it goes without saying, the eye test kind of shows that there were a lot of pressures on the day, that Tennessee defense was throwing as many blitzes as they could. They were breaking up the pocket as often as possible, but at the end of the day, they only had 3 tackles for loss generated, and 2 of those were passing, and those are the 2 sacks that they got for the day. The rest, Stetson cleaned up. He didn't always connect with his targets. He didn't always get the ball where it needed to go, but a lot of our receivers cleaned up in that sense because we have so much talent on that team. And he was able to clean up in the backfield to make it happen, and I think that is incredibly impressive. The other piece that's really, really impressive is the EPA. This is pretty hilarious to me. We were in the preview episode talking about if this team does score, being Tennessee, if this Tennessee team does score, it's going to be through explosive plays. It's going to be something that they throw together and have to throw it deep. They have to bomb it, et cetera, et cetera. And that was absolutely true. What I really love about this, and this is just another testament to our team, our defense, Tennessee's EPA without explosive plays was negative 40.88, which is just incredible, to say the very least. That is, all the glory to this Georgia defensive squad. Tennessee's total EPA for the day overall was negative 8.86, and offense being negative 7.19 of that. So pretty significant difference between those two numbers, I would say, when explosiveness is taken out of it. What else do you see in these stats that you kind of want to shed some light on? Anything at all?
All right. Well, I think we should sort of transition into our observations because I think we
Okay.
need to talk about Stetson Bennett.
Okay, we'll do it. We'll do it. I know I jumped the gun a bit, but had to for the sake of stats.
I think these are sometimes pretty nebulous. These segments of our podcast. That's fine. We run this podcast. We can do what we want. So
that's correct.
let's talk about the two guys that we had play today. Right, the two, I guess, opposing quarterbacks. So you had Hendon Hooker, 24 for 37, 244 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 5 sacks, 29.6 xQBR. Hendon Hooker went for 5.81 yards per play, negative 0.2 EPA per play, negative 8.5 EPA, 38% success rate, 9 win percentage added. That's not a good day. Pretty rough day playing a very, very good defense. So, I think it's an interesting contrast to then look at Stetson passing line, right? 17 for 29, 213 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, 2 sacks taken, 90.1 xQBR, 6.87 yards per play, 0.1 EPA per play added. That's okay. You want to be probably more around 0.2. 3.11 EPA cumulatively on the game, 42% success rate, also just okay, and 0% win percentage added. I think it's pretty interesting. Hendon Hooker had 9% more win percentage added than Stetson Bennett. Now, a lot of that has to do with how the game played out and the relative talent of these two teams. I just think it's interesting. But here's the real difference. That's their passing yards, okay? Their passing lines. Let's look at these two quarterbacks, and I think this kind of gets into why is Stetson Bennett starting? What is this sort of – what's the hook here for Kirby Smart? So Hendon Hooker, 12 carries, 51 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 fumbles, 4.25 yards per play, negative 0.28 EPA per play, negative 3.34 EPA per play, 50% success rate when running, 2% win percentage added. Stetson Bennett, 6 carries, 58 yards, 1 touchdown, 9.67 yards per play, 1.15 EPA per play added, 6.89 EPA on the day, 83% success rate, 10% win percentage added. To me, I think in one stat line, that's why Stetson Bennett is starting. Stetson Bennett gives you something with his legs, and I think that at this point in the season, 10 games in, it's fair to say that is not a fluke, right? He has gone through an entire SEC season and been good on the ground, good as a scrambling quarterback in very key high leverage situations, converting third downs, converting second, third and goals, rushing for touchdowns, etc. I think that we can't discount that as a value add that he brings. And I think, I have things to say about him as a passing quarterback that I think he still needs to improve. But I think what yesterday did, and this is, I guess, my biggest observation on the day, and I was going to put this in my takeaways, but hey, what does it mean?
It's all nebulous, baby.
Yeah. So this, hold on. Give me 2 seconds. I'm sorry, I had to respond to a text. Oh, sorry. Just put a click in.
I did. You're good.
All right, I'm back. Here we are. After this game, and I think especially if you think that James Cook is emerging as like sort of an every down all-purpose back that UJ can lean on, or at least, a big part of that equation, I think I'm finally kind of seeing like what is the theory of this offense. I think I'm seeing like proof of concept for this Georgia offense in a way that I did not before. And this wasn't Georgia's best offensive game. I'm sure that we could look at the EPA and say what was their most well-rounded game. But I think if you think about Georgia's offense through the standpoint of, okay, we're going to throw it deep because we have a couple of good outside receivers. We got Ladd McConkey, we got Jermaine Burton, we've got A.D. Mitchell, right? And then we're going to run it up the middle. We have a back that we trust in James Cook, who we can move around and throw the ball to and do all sorts of interesting things to put stress on their linebacking core. And then we have, the best tight end room in the nation, and it's not particularly close, right? With Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington, who are going to really like free up stuff in the middle of the field by throwing behind linebackers. And then we have a quarterback who can be a legitimate, 6, 8, 10 carry a game designed run player, and then also scramble for some first downs. To me, that is a totally coherent theory of offense. I guess sort of in hindsight, one of the things that really bothered me about continuing to start Stetson was that before this game, we never really saw that happen. Now, I still think there were some things in that theory of offense that Stetson doesn't do very well. And I think the chief among them is that he doesn't throw over the middle of the field very well. He has a very nice deep ball. He can throw deep easily, but the intermediate passes between 5 and 20 yards, it's just not great right now. And so I think that I'm feeling better about him starting for the rest of the year, which he probably is, because to me, that is a coherent way to run an offense, right? You can put stress on the offense vertically and horizontally. You have tight ends that are basically unguardable. You have a running back who seems to be like playing his best football right now and is proving that he can be an every down back, even at his size. I think that's you can build a national championship team around that. I think every team that wins big at the college football level, especially teams that win the national and the SEC, you have to have an offense that has some sort of coherent plan. And I did not, before this game, I could not see, and this is probably because I'm an idiot, but before this game, I could not see what the coherent plan was, right? Like, what are we trying to do here? Like, we're running Zamir White in the middle on first and second down. What are we doing here? And look, the thing is, Stetson still had some bad throws. Stetson got bailed out by his wide receivers several times, and there were a couple of throws that he missed touchdowns. He's not perfect. I still think we should think about starting someone else. But if you are saying the value add is we can be a consistent, we can matriculate the ball down the field because we have a guy who can run, I am great. That is a coherent theory of offense. It is just one that we have to follow through on it, right? We have to continue it and make it something for it to work against a better team than Tennessee. Stetson is going to have to throw across the middle.
Yeah.
Right? Like he has to complete those passes. He has to hit those intermediate shots.
And for that to happen in this game, I think that our O-line needs to be completely healthy. And it's great that we have two weeks that are pretty inconsequential for the most part to get there.
And that's actually a very good way to transition out to other observations. I thought moving Xavier Truss in at guard was a great move. We did the same thing late in the, I believe, 2018 or 19 season when we moved Cleveland in for Sawyer late in the season. A.D. Mitchell looking really good. We're tight end you. Nobody else can claim it.
Very much so.
It's us now. Look at us. We're tight end you. I never really felt like things were in doubt. I don't know about you, but I felt like we were going to win this game the whole time.
I mean, I'll say it was a weird first quarter. That's that's the biggest thing.
It was, yeah. I want to say one more thing, and then I'll let you get to your observations. Let's just take a moment and appreciate our unequivocally masculine short king, James Cook.
It's true.
He is a real football player. He is Alvin Kamara. He's probably not Dalvin Cook, but I think he is more of a running back than people think he is. I think there's more to him as a player. I think he's playing his best ball. And I think people who think he can't run it up the middle, I think he pretty quantitatively disproved that this weekend. That guy is shifty. He knows how to hit the hole. He's got really great vision. He can catch the ball. And he's tougher than he looks, right? And I think it's time to stop thinking of him as like a, J.J. Green, Washaun Ely, scat back, and start thinking of him as like just an offensive weapon.
No longer tiny fast boy.
Yeah. Unequivocally masculine short king for life. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that it's easy to discount him. I think that he should be the starting running back in games that matter for the rest of the year. I think he's pretty good at this point.
Most definitely. He was just absolutely outstanding.
Do you have any other observations about what happened on the field?
I mean, I think we caught most of them for the most part already. I think that this was a really great game for A.D. Mitchell. I think that he absolutely balled out. There was that one drive where the ball went to him every time, and he was cleaning up for Stetson. I think he dove like 3 or 4 times, but I think he may have been the target 4 or 5 times in a row and caught it every time and just kind of picked our momentum back up when things felt kind of stale. Between him and Cook, like I think that this was a very big like I'm coming out kind of game for them both. But very very impressed with our tight ends, very impressed with our wide receivers, just cleaning up and making things happen. And yeah, I was a little worried about playing such a fast offense, but I think that we definitely came out and figured it out. It turns out we're just super talented, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, our defense proved that it can definitely keep up with even that. It was a different team than we played all season, and I think that they still came out on top. So sky feels like the limit at this point, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think.
Go ahead.
One thing I will say, like before we move on, is like I think one of the secret differences between this team and teams like even 2017, outside of the quarterback position, when we're on offense, is that we just have so much more skill talent that it might not matter, and that's becoming more and more clear as we play better and better games.
It's true. Feels good, man. Feels good, man.
Play me on, my Hotman. All right, what are we moving on to?
Some takeaways. What are our big takeaways, from here on? Like, what are we hoping to see, I guess, in the next 2 weeks? Is it just going to be a bunch of boring football until we get to the SEC championship? Perhaps. But what do we need to see, I guess, going forward now that on the horizon is Bama at this point, presumably?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, let's stop. Don't put in any starters against Charleston Southern. Not just like, oh, I don't care if we start Nathan Priestley. Like, just let's get out of there. I want to be as healthy as possible. I don't want Devonta White to see the field. I don't want Nolan Smith to see the field. Sounds like that the early indications are that both of those injuries are recoverable. I don't want to see anybody. If they want to play for one day, one snap on senior day, that's fine. But then get them out of there. Like, we got to stay healthy. I think that going forward, I just think we need to continue to see Stat when he is playing, which he should play against Georgia Tech. I really need to see Stat complete some balls across the middle of the field and in that intermediate zone. And, if I can see that consistently, I will start to feel a lot better. What about you?
I was just looking up what the final note on Nolan Smith's injury was.
It turns out he did not dislocate his elbow. So the earlier reports are that he may be okay without any like serious tendon damage. Like he might just be out for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I just read something on 24/7 saying that I believe from Rusty Menzel saying that he's fine this year.
Yeah, it was a bunch going on. Like, and one thing that if you weren't already aware, I think they said it a bunch of the broadcast, but a bunch of players were dealing with the flu.
Yeah.
Which
so
I only laugh because I think it's just
Carter
a silly thing. Yeah.
I mean, there is a flu epidemic right now at UGA.
Mm-hmm.
My wife works at UGA and can tell you that firsthand that it's pretty crazy. Everybody has the flu right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a messy time for everybody involved. And yeah, Nolan Smith's back on the field. Yada. He's fine. He's okay. He's just going to rest a bit. He's just going to rest a whole bunch, and that's okay. That's what he needs. That's what we all need.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Davis was also dealing with the flu and was still very Jordan Davis the whole time, so that's pretty cool. But you want to look at our predictions for this game and how they turned out?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to. We had I continue to be on fire predicting the score and really bad at every other over-under. So we had over-under 1.5 Hooker in interceptions, and we both took under, and we both hit on that. He only had one. We had over-under 0.5 UGA turnovers. We had 0 turnovers on the day, I believe. So
I believe that's true.
That was also one I won. We had over-under 0.5 UGA defensive scores, and we both took over because we're idiots, so neither of us won that.
Not today.
Not today. We're, I guess, 2-1 Nathan. And then we had over-under 13.5 Tennessee points, and I took over, you took under. Probably just to spite David Pollock, but he was right. They scored 17 on the day. And then over under 0.5 or 120.5 Tennessee rushing yards. We both said under. That definitely hit.
Mm-hmm.
I was on fire. You said 50-13. I said 41-20. I was 3 points off on this prediction. I feel like that's my biggest accomplishment I've ever had in my life.
Proud of you.
Not excluding marrying my wife and graduating from college and getting a job. But outside of those things, very very big day for me. I don't know. I feel like we're really honing in on how this team works at this point and what they are. And honestly, like my expectations going forward are just like make a good plan for the for playing Alabama, and I don't care about the rest of it.
What kind of funny little things are they going to pull out of their magic hat at the end of this season? I wonder. I'm looking forward to it.
As though they're Humphrey Mizzou on Mizzou Day.
Ugh, it's now Mizzou Day. Do you hear that, children? The pitter patter of Mizzou and his cloven hooves.
Humphrey Mizzou and his magic hat, his little magic hat. All right, we got to stop this. Nobody else knows what the fuck we're talking about when we talk about Humphrey Mizzou, and I feel like we just gotta totally commit to it, like David S. Pumpkin style, or we gotta, I don't know.
It's better this way. Let's get to our favorite segment of the show. It's the Ask CBC segment. Y'all ask questions, and we hopefully have answers. And if you ever want to put your question on the show, make sure that you get it to us, either through travelbellcurve@gmail.com or just tag us on one of the various social media platforms that we are upon, or get into our Discord. Just $1.
Sundry social media.
Before we do this, I am going to take a sip of water.
I also could use one. All right, let's go.
All right. Our very first question comes from Trip Haskins through the email. Salutations. I had a question regarding the difference in the running game between the two quarterbacks. Much has been said about Stetson's ability to run, adding a dimension to the offense that JT does not provide. From the outset, this would seemingly improve the running game by adding another wrinkle in zone reads, as well as adding an additional blocker on design QB runs. From watching the games, however, it seems as if opposing defenses are more willing to walk the safeties up to the line of scrimmage and run blitz with their linebackers when Stetson is at quarterback. This would seemingly hurt the ability for the running backs to have successful runs inside the tackles. I was wondering if the data bears out a difference between the run game when Stetson plays compared to JT. I'll hang up and listen, and as always, if Dan Mullen was a piss baby who enjoyed peeing himself, he would definitely be wearing khakis while he did it, but who's really to say? That's correct, Trip. We are not saying that, and neither are you.
We're not saying that. Who's to say, Trip? We don't know.
Who is to say?
Yeah, I don't have a very good way of... So part of the problem is that the games that JT has played in this year were either against teams that we turned out to find out were fundamentally flawed, right? Or, way undermanned, or against teams that were very low quality, right? So that's basically the issue in like determining this. I would say that just observationally, that makes sense to me. I think that UGA, the way you combat this at this point is that you have to be willing to have Stetson keep it on a couple more of those inside zone reads and those bluff reads. Well, not bluff reading, actually having the real inside zone action there. And then you can get those safeties out of position and they get kind of washed out in the scrum if he's taking the ball outside. But I do think there's an element of like, he needs to be able to, Stetson's like the last hurdle for Stetson, I think, is throwing over linebackers' heads and in front of safeties. He's done that successfully at some points in his career, but just doing that with consistency, I think, gets him a natty, basically.
Mm-hmm. Rand, R-A-A-N-D, asks, which was higher, the number of times Rocky Top was played or the number of times Tennessee players held without a flag? Oh, both astronomical numbers, truly.
UT only had 70 offensive plays, and even though it seemed like that they held on basically all of them, I cannot imagine, even on a game that they lost, that UT's band played Rocky Top fewer than 70 times.
I think it's actually 84, but you're right.
Although, now, hold on. The other side of this is we did beat the crap out of them.
Yeah.
So, like, I didn't really actually hear it that many times. So I guess I'll take uncalled holds for 500, Alex.
Christy in London asks, in which game this year has Georgia come closest to showing just how good it could possibly be? Ooh.
What do you think?
I was just about to look back on our games real quick to see just a quick reference. Just the soundest...
I mean,
I feel like the one that comes to mind immediately is Arkansas.
Yeah, I think Arkansas is probably what you would point to as just everything working like front to back. But I mean, there's an argument to be made that like, well, Arkansas game got out of hand really quick, and we had a kind of fluky special teams touchdown, and they had all those penalties. Maybe that's not repeatable. I really think that this is weird, but I actually think that the real potential of this team we saw at Tennessee and at Auburn. Those were 2 days where a lot of stuff went wrong on the road, and you had some weird injuries, and you had some bad calls, and maybe your offensive game plan wasn't that good, but you still showed like fundamentally who you are as a team, and you've like had that identity travel. Good teams cover, right? And good teams cover on the road. And those were 2 games on the road where I believe UGA covered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, obviously, like you could pick any game really, but to me, the mark of a team that's truly elite and can like win the whole damn thing is a team that can go in when they're having a bad day, right?
Yeah.
And go in when the plan doesn't work and go from there.
I'll say a late arrival to this question is the Florida game, those 2 minutes before the halftime, all those points we scored. That was another just like, wow, this team's really good.
Yeah.
Steven asks, how old were you the last time Georgia was 10-0? I was not born.
Yeah, it was 1982. I did not know that 1982 UGA was undefeated going into the Sugar Bowl, or I believe Sugar Bowl, to play Penn State, and then lost. They were the number 1 team. They probably should have won a natty that year.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild that they lost that Penn State team. Anyway, but yeah, 1982. We were negative years old.
Not even a thought yet. Disney Dog asks, what Taylor Swift era is this team in? Furthermore, what about other teams in this SEC?
All right, so here's the thing. I don't know
enough about Taylor Swift to answer this question properly, I feel.
I do. I listen to a lot of Taylor Swift.
Uh-huh.
I was in like the top 5% of Taylor Swift fans on Spotify last year. But
That's
I don't
impressive.
know. Yeah, I just listen to it a lot. It's very good. I think Taylor Swift is an excellent songwriter, and I have a lot of thoughts about her compositionally in terms of how she layers sounds. And anyway, doesn't matter. I think her production value is very high. I'll stop. I don't know enough about Taylor, like the phenomena, to tell you this question accurately. So I will just tell you based on my opinions. I feel like in terms of UJ's attitude, this is definitely like reputation Taylor, like ready to kick shit up, right? You know.
Mm-hmm.
But Reputation is not my favorite Taylor album. So, and this is like my favorite UGA team in forever.
I
feel like just sort of attitude-wise, I feel like this is Reputation Taylor, where it's like doesn't give a shit about you. Is like hasn't ever really been very mean, but it's like now I'm gonna be mean, and is like weirdly good at it. You know what I mean? Lover, I think, is my favorite Taylor album. I know that's probably a bad opinion. I really love it. I love every single damn song on that album. I think it's straight heaters all the way down. I think Lover is like just vintage like 9-pitch inning at the end of a tight baseball game from a really dominant closer. It's just like it's like 10 99-mile-an-hour fastballs, like painting the corners. That's I love Lover. So that would probably be my.
I really do like Lover as well. Yeah, it's really good.
The song Lover in particular, I think, is just like I think it's an excellent tone poem. Anyway, so but yes, I would say attitude.
I did find this lovely list. I just wanted to throw at you that kind of gives you a quick quip for each era. That could have helped. There's a few we haven't really hit, so let me hit you with the ones that you haven't actually hit. You ready? So I will say the red era, not the re-releasing era, because I think this list at least defines the re-releasing era that we're currently in as its own thing, and then the original red era says it saw Taylor shifting into a more mature experimental style. Is there anyone that resonates with that description?
Any SEC team?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's like Alabama. They're just in like a different.
They're trying something new. Playing the field. The other one is the 1989 era established Taylor as a global pop phenomenon.
A global pop phenomena?
Yes.
that's like some real Tennessee energy. It's like a like just bubble gum, like just their offense is like pop. They have a pop offense, you know. It's
And
very
then
different, very like popular.
Folklore and Evermore had the, embracing the cottagecore aesthetic is what this list says.
Cottagecore aesthetic. To me, that feels like I can't back this up, but I feel like that feels like Kentucky.
Okay. I mean,
feel
they're up
like
there in the mountains.
that Kentucky is kind of cottagecore to me, and I don't know why.
And then finally, the
Maybe
re-recording
the
era.
checkerboard pattern.
Yeah, it's that
Okay,
checkerboard.
The re-recording era.
The re-recording era.
Yeah.
Taylor has power that most don't, and her very personal fight to reshape the way wealth is distributed from creative work could change the music industry, is what it's described as.
I don't know, man. Maybe Georgia.
It's just NIL in general.
Yeah. Or it's like I'll say this. Mike Leach thinks he's the re-recording era, but he's not.
There it is. Okay, that's fair. I like it. Okay, that we spent enough time talking about Taylor Swift on our football podcast. Ned Vidic asks, what will it take for the playoff structure to expand? I assume it will happen eventually, so when do you think it will happen, and how long will it take once the wheels start moving? Also, as the number one team, would an expanded playoff work against us?
Well, to kind of answer them out of order, no, it wouldn't, because most of the expanded playoff designs that I've seen have a bye for the top two teams, so we would be playing the same amount of games, and honestly, it might work for us because other teams would have had to play more games, right? What is it going to take to expand? I mean, basically, you have a bunch of different stakeholders I hate that word, at a table, and they all have different things that they want, right? And once that, I mean, it's all over but the shouting. What it's going to take is like another year of negotiating. It's happening.
Mhm.
It's happening.
It's got to
There's
happen.
too much money on the table. It's going to happen. I think it probably will come around like 2024-ish, but it is happening.
Steven asks, all right, so with Georgia having the East locked up and FPI giving us a 57% chance of making the playoff, even with a loss in the SEC championship game, is it too early to talk playoffs? What's your dream Final Four? Who's your dream date?
Any three teams that are not Alabama, because that would mean that Alabama had lost to us. So, yeah, that would be nice. But I would say, I just want to point out that I also let's pause, and I want to say one more thing about Taylor Swift. That 1989 was, I think 1989 is her best album, but Lover is my favorite song. So I always have like a soft spot in my heart for Lover, because Lover makes me think about my wife. So yeah. Anyway,
it's very sweet.
So
now a Taylor Swift podcast.
What's your dream Final Four? It's oh man, I would love to not have to play Ohio State, man.
Yeah, I do not want us to play Ohio State.
Michigan, Cincinnati, Oregon. Like, I want to win. I don't care. People are like, I want to play the best team. Fuck that, man. I want the ring. Let's get out of here. If we could play Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, and Sister Mary's School for the Poor or whatever in the playoff, and they gave us the ring and the trophy, I wouldn't care.
I think there's a very good chance we play Ohio State in the championship if we do make it through the SEC championship. I think there's a very good chance that is where we're headed. And that is if we don't play them in the first round, which I do not believe we are.
I really don't want that now.
Yeah,
that's like a nightmare. That 1-4 game, Ohio sneaks in with the 1-4 game. I'd hate that.
Yeah,
anyway.
What is most likely going to happen if we beat Alabama? I think we see it's a Georgia, Ohio State, whoever the hell sneaks in if Pac-12 doesn't win, and then Cincinnati. I do want Cincinnati to be there. I want them to be there. Bring them. Let them come.
Yeah,
let them make it.
There's a lot of shit talking Cincinnati fans online right now. Which
yeah,
that would be
if
nice.
we beat, this is the thing. If we beat Alabama, we might be playing Cincinnati in the first round. We won't be playing them in the national championship. That would be wild. But I think we could be playing them in the first round if we win out through the playoffs.
Yeah.
Erk Dressel asks, what are your thoughts on protecting stats versus star players?
Well, look, obviously this is in reference to the fact that we had the first team in. We had a lot of the first team defense in on that last drive where they scored the 17th point. I get it as, as a motivational tactic, I get that it's good that you've created a culture where your team wants to be in at the end of basically meaningless snaps. So I don't think that it's one of those things where it's like you have to pull everybody. You have to pull everybody. I get that. It's clearly important to the team, and you can't. That seems to be something that is what makes this team special. That's a part of what makes this team special, is that they're the kind of team that doesn't want to give up 17 points, right? Even when they're up, 30 at that point or whatever. So on the one hand, I don't think you can totally discount the idea, because I think there is something to, you want to lean in and you want to encourage the thing that makes each of your teams special to continue to be special. But on the other hand, it's like, come on, guys, like Tennessee is cursed. And I know part of it, I mean, I know Kirby would never ever say this, but Kirby did go 0-4 against Tennessee as a one of the best things about Kirby is that, like, he has a, like, sort of Michael Jordan-ness to him, where it's like Dan Mullen said like 3 things about Georgia, and Kirby was like, and I took that personally. And I feel like there's a little bit of that in Kirby. I'm not saying that makes him like a bad coach or a bad decision maker, but I think that there is part of it where, like, Kirby don't like Tennessee, man. Like,
No.
He just don't. Like, that's part of it. And he really doesn't like the fact that he lost like a dumb game on a Hail Mary to them. And so I get it, but yeah, I would have probably taken out a lot of the starters on that drive.
Yeah. Nick J asks, where does Georgia prefer to play its semifinals game? Is there a disadvantage to either site, or does it not matter? Where are they playing, first of all? Where are the sites?
Miami or Dallas. So I've talked to some people about this that I know, that would know. Let me rephrase. That were privy to the discussion when we went to the Rose Bowl. And I could be wrong here, but what I have heard is, so this is not me reporting, this is just like what I've heard is the team that is the higher seed picks, right?
Okay.
And the highest 2 seeds pick. So for instance, Oklahoma really wanted to go to the Rose Bowl because they knew that it would make it harder for Georgia fans to travel, and that they would have an advantage in terms of, like, body clock, basically. So I think it's going to be a similar I think it's going to be a similar situation with UGA. It just depends on who they play. So, for instance, like, this isn't going to happen now because Oklahoma lost to Baylor. But if UGA was 1 and Oklahoma was 4, there's no way in hell that they're going to play at Dallas, because that would be like a glorified home game for Oklahoma, right? If UGA is playing, a team from the Central or Pacific time zone, if they're playing Oregon, they're definitely going to do Miami, right? Because Miami is in your time zone, right? And it's farther away from Oregon. Right, so you're going to have more of a home field advantage if you do that. I think it really depends on who we play. If you told me we're going to play Cincinnati, I don't know. I mean, I've heard that people like Dallas, but I don't know to what extent we can trust that. Assuming UGA is the number 1 seed, which, could be true, could be not, I really think it would just depend on who they were going to play, where they would go.
Next question comes from Keith. Go ahead.
Yeah. Kirby didn't want to play in the Rose Bowl. Like, not as like a person, he probably wanted to play, but like in terms of just the logistics of getting to and from the Rose Bowl and having to like adjust everybody's body clock and sleep schedule on like a 6-day turnaround to play the national championship, he hated that, right? So that's a lot of what's going to go into the decision making.
Yeah, less than ideal. Next question, Keith Schroeder. Why did Kirby keep defensive starters in during garbage time when the risk for injury during that game was really high?
Well, okay, so I would point out that none of the injuries that were sustained really had anything to do with the turf, right? I don't know that the risk of any injuries was either higher or lower for starters than any other game at that point, really, right? I would have pulled more of them. I understand his logic, but I think what he was thinking is, at this point in the season, 10 games into what could be a 15-game season, morale matters a lot. And if your guys want to play for pride, that really means something. I don't really think that's the case, but that's, I think, would be his logic.
Yeah. I also think that, I know we talked a lot about the turf, and there's like a lot of folks that have said, and confirmed that the turf is bad. But also, everyone's playing with the damn flu. I think that probably had something to do with it, and not having like complete 100% use of all of your faculties and extremities.
You didn't really have your you didn't have your all 22 either, right? Like,
yeah.
If some of the guys that were out with the flu, or that were sick with the flu, and I've heard that there were way more kids sick with the flu than Kirby let on, you might not have been able to put your second team defense out there and feel really comfortable with it at all.
Jared Campbell asks, Nathan's ranking of his most hated teams in the SEC and 1 bullet point as to why. You give us your top 3 or 5.
Yeah, I can. Do you want to do this double dog one first? Because I want to give it full shrift, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna have like lost all of my
I'll come back
energy
and
after I answer this
yeah,
question.
I'll mention it one more
Yeah.
time. Double Dog with another email question. Dear kind sirs, thank you so much for using the proper salutations. On rewatching the Mizzou game, there is a lovely goal line play where Jordan Davis is on offense. Has this been happening all season, or is Kirby trying to prepare him for more real for Heisman contention? Should we expect to see more of this throughout the season? To be honest, I am here for more JD in any capacity. Kindest regards, Double Dog.
It's happened 3 times this year. I believe it happened in Florida, Missouri, and I want to say Arkansas. So I think it's, that's just part of their goal line package at this point. I don't know that it's really a Heisman thing. I think that Jordan Davis is just the best player on the team, and Kirby knows that.
Mm-hmm. So, last question of the segment. Jared Campbell asks, Nathan's ranking of his most hated teams in the SEC and 1 bullet point as to why.
Well, Florida is number 1 because I'll try to keep these bullet points short. I feel like that the hypocrisy of Tim Tebow is going to leave a permanent stain on that program for me. I would say number 2 is Tennessee because I lived in Knoxville for a while and there are a lot of beautiful people and it's a beautiful place, but hate that organization. I hate that university. I hate they're low down, they're snitches, they cheat and they dirty. I hate them. Number 3, it's kind of just a morass of all the other teams. It's probably Auburn. I have had really good experiences with some Auburn fans, and then some Auburn fans just act like just total jackasses. So Auburn's sort of, I don't know, like just their holier than thou Bible school bullshit kind of throws me off, right? Organizationally. Number 4. Is this SEC only? I guess I can't include Georgia Tech in this. Okay. It's so funny. I have so much hatred that like I put in very specific places. I'm not totally over hating South Carolina. No, we'll put 4 in for Alabama. They're not they're not on our side of the thing, but obviously they've been the impediment, and I hate them. I don't hate Nick Saban the way a lot of Georgia fans do, but I hate Alabama. I hate their pretension. I hate their sort of like. I hate their just winning ennui that they have where they expect to win every time. I hate them. I think there's a lot of like Duke / Alabama / Dallas Cowboys fans / Lakers fans or whatever. And I hate them. Let's see. 5, we'll say South Carolina because anything that Steve Spurrier touches, I hate too. So there we go.
I like it. Okay, so before we get to our final segment of the show, we do have a little Patreon segment, which is this one came in from Abby and her lovely husband, Ben, or Captain Falcon, as he's known colloquially, here on the Discord server. But they have a question for us. What Monster Heart skins are the SEC teams? And what this means to those unaware, Monster Hearts is, this was brought up in the Discord about a week ago because in February of 2020, Nathan, myself, our friend Peter, and both of our wives all sat down and played what we thought was going to be a fun off-season series of episodes where we role-played using a game called Monster Hearts, and it all took place at the University of Georgia. We were various made-up football players and adjacent people. And we still have the recording. There's a chance it might come out. But at the time, it felt like a really bad idea to release that as everything in the world was shutting down. And so it exists. It's kind of like the Vault of Secrets, the Chapel Bell Curve Vault of Secrets. And one day we will open the vault along with all of the other things that are hidden in the vault as well. There are some really great interviews. One with Jim Wood, where I interviewed Jim Wood a while back. And so maybe you'll see those things. But to the question itself.
We're going to have to post the Monster Hearts.
It's going to have to happen. Point, right? Yeah, you guys will hear it. Don't worry. Yeah, so we took a moment right before the show started to go through all of these, and we'll explain a little bit of who they are and what they do. But I'll go through a few of them, and then I'll let you go through a few of them as well, Nathan. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Yes. He is nodding. He is nodding on this audio medium. We're ready for it. So these are all characters or roles you could play in this game is kind of what this is. Like when the game starts, you open up the rule book essentially, and you choose what character you're going to be, and that determines what sort of moves
Well, do you want to talk
and things
about
like
like the
that.
premise
Sure, yeah.
of the
Monster
game?
Hearts.
Yeah.
Monster Hearts is like if everybody was a monster, but also a teenager, which is basically so if everyone is a teenager, and it's just hormone ridden and monster filled, and it's very dark, and each character actually has what's called a sex move as well, because that is how you would interact in those moments is kind of how they're trying to you know they're trying to provide the context and the guidance there in those situations determined by your monster roll is sort of what the game is. Is there anything I'm missing in that description?
No, it's tonally, I would say it's like CW
Yes.
teen drama. Like, you're not a bad person because you're a vampire. You're a bad person because you're 18 or 17 or whatever.
It's important. These are all important distinctions. So we'll go through a few of these. The first one I have on the list is the Fae, which is a sort of fairy-like creature that lives in like a realm adjacent to ours. Some notes about the Fae. They value promises above all things. They're the sort of creature that would also like trick you into a promise and then trick you into breaking your promise so that they can then keep you forever, or whatever they agreed upon was the consequence for breaking your promise. They value beauty above all things. They're incredibly hedonistic. I chose LSU to be the Fae. The next one's the Ghost. The Ghost is, of course, invisible.
Just
it's
the
perfect
hedonism.
Boo Ghost.
The hedonism, right?
The hedonism is really what did LSU in for that one. The Ghost is invisible. The very the way that translates to this game is that they are also somewhat voyeuristic as well. So they're always kind of on the outside looking in. And we said that's Vanderbilt. What do you got?
Let's see. The Ghoul, they are dead, and they're sort of like a zombie ish. All their joy is gone, but they're beautiful in their new body. There's something like sort of divinely sort of fey beauty to them, and there's a deep hunger within them, like a hole that they can't fill, no matter what they do. And that's Georgia. That's just the trauma, the psychological trauma machine that is Georgia and UGA Sports. Yeah.
Incredible.
And then we've got the Infernal. They have a contract with the Dark Power. They're like trying to get out of making the Dark Power can like make them do horrible things, and they have to make contracts with other people with the Dark Power to get out of their contract. And that's Alabama and Nick Saban. If I
100%. Yeah. We also
right,
we have
got?
the Mortal, which is essentially like your Buffy. No, it's less Buffy because Buffy's kind of a badass. It's more like Bella from Twilight. Codependency is like written into this character. They're all through and through just a human, but is also aware of the monster world and very much wants to be a part of it in some way. That's Texas A&M for us. The next character is the Queen, which is all basically like Queen Bee, very like mean girl mind control. I think that's Florida, and that's how they've got their 20 quarterbacks essentially. What do you have?
They're 20 quarterbacks. They're just their mind control. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the vampire is sexy, distant, sort of like torn between their old world and this world of like horrible excess and the undead. So we said Ole Miss, sexy quarterback but dead defense. Let's see, the werewolf, sort of chaotic, like talking about the sort of the thin line between the man and the beast and just the chaos of it. That's Auburn, right? The full moon is like odd year Auburn, even year Auburn. That's the waxing and waning of the full moon. Oh yeah. Anything else? What else we got?
We got the witch. The witch's moves are all dependent on taking what's called like sympathetic tokens, which are basically like taking something at the detriment of others in order to fulfill their like dark contracts and fulfill the requirements for their moves. That is Tennessee. Tennessee is definitely like taking sympathetic tokens every time that someone gets injured in Neyland Stadium, et cetera, et cetera. There's the Chosen, which this is the actual Buffy. It's like the main character of the story. The Chosen for this one, but you put South Carolina. Could you explain the South Carolina bit for the Chosen?
Well, because Buffy, the Chosen is like just a regular human that just like improbably kills monsters all the time, and South Carolina is like the unranked, not bowl-bound team that is just going to upset like a top 10 team every year.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to roll us? I think the rest of these are actually ones that you chose. Do you want to roll us through them real quick?
Yeah. So we've got or the Serpentine, a dragon that holds like the horde's a person. Like they have a dragon's horde, and part of their dragon's horde is a person that they're obsessed with. And right now, that's Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley. The Cerberus is like the dog that guards the divide between the magical world and the real world. And we said that's Kentucky because it's like basketball and not basketball. The Sasquatch is like an endangered species that's being hunted and they're hiding away. They're kind of bullied by default. And that's Missouri. Sorry, Missouri.
Sorry, bud.
The neighbor is like the awkward mortal character that doesn't know what's going on and always says the wrong thing. And to us, that sounded like Mississippi State and Mike Leach. I think actually Broboba might have suggested that one, or somebody, maybe Eric Russell. The Selkie is a seal that is like lost, can lose its seal skin, or is like basically a seal in a magical cloak, and if it loses it, it becomes a seal again. It's like a stranger in a strange land, doesn't really know how to adjust to life on the land. So that's Texas. Let's see. The Air is like the seventh child of a family where one of the parents is the seventh child of the seventh child, and they have like this like weird cursed existence where they have to fight their siblings, and like they're sort of like constantly in conflict with their weird family, and like just like really backwater in some ways. So that's Arkansas to us. So yeah, there we go. We're happy to have our patron segment on here because Ben and Abby have been such great supporters of the podcast. And if you'd like to get one on here as well, you could go over to patreon.com/Chapel-Bell-Curve.
Yeah, get more information, why don't you? And our final segment of the show is, of course, our Dr. James Bearfield Troll Corner. It's presented by Cheerwine. It's the wine that gives you diabetes. Very first question, not even a question. He just says trash poem.
Yeah, so I'm going to read The Trashman by Charles Bukowski, which I don't even really like this poem, but I like Charles Bukowski. This is not one of my favorites of his. But anyway, here they come. These guys, great truck, radio playing. They're in a hurry. It's quite exciting. Shirt open, bellies hanging out. They run out the trash bins, roll them up to the forklift, and then the truck grinds it upward with far too much sound. They had to fill out application forms to get these jobs. They're paying for homes and will drive late model cars. They get drunk on Saturday night. Now in Los Angeles sunshine, they run back and forth with the trash bins. All that trash goes somewhere, and they shout to each other. Then they are all up in the truck, driving west towards the sea. None of them know that I am alive. And then in all caps, Rex Disposal Company. Anyway, yeah, the trash man. Bellies hanging out, getting drunk on a Saturday night. Yeah.
Get it, y'all. Second question, least favorite college football player ever?
Oh, man, I don't like to pick on player. It's Tim Tebow. Whatever, what am I saying?
I was about to say, you're about to say, you know exactly who your least favorite player is. Yeah, Tim Tebow's up there for me. Mine, I
don't want to pick on a current player, is what I'm saying.
No.
Like, you know.
Manti Te'o is one of my least favorite football players at this point. Yeah. Yeah. Cam Newton, not a big fan. But that's all. Has CBCR squared accounted for mean, median, and mode to correct its error factor?
Yes, this is such a troll.
The mitochondria is a powerhouse
Such
to
a
sell.
troll. Yeah, really.
Rank the Transformers movies from best to worst, then from most robot to least robot. What? Is that most, like, how much robot is in the movie? How many Transformers movies even are there?
I haven't seen any of these.
Hold on,
I haven't seen
please.
any of these.
Okay, so there's Transformers 1, Transformers 2. Then apparently there's 3, 4, 5. There was a Bumblebee movie, and there's another one coming out in 2023. There are 6 Transformers movies in the modern era.
Jeez.
Here's a troll for you. I say 1 through 7 in that order. Boom, done.
Yeah, probably that's the case. Yeah.
The
I've heard
Bumblebee
Bumblebee's
movie
actually
had,
pretty good.
but it had the least robot, probably. It's named after one robot.
Right.
It's got
yeah.
the least robot in it. So that's obviously least robot. To most robot, probably somewhere in the middle. Like they had to peak at some point, I bet. So 3 or 4 most likely.
Yeah, it's probably 3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah. I'm really excited. Apparently the next one coming out is Transformers Rise of the Beasts. And we all know Beast Wars was the best era for Transformers. Just putting that out there. Rat Trap fan for life. Number 5. If the run game didn't develop like it did, do we see JT Daniels during the game?
Maybe. I think you have to be down like 17 before you think about a change, or maybe if we were down 10, then you might. If you were down 10, but the 7 that they got was from a pick 6, you know.
There was a point in the
that
game
would
where I
be-
was sitting next to you on the couch and you said, "This is his last drive. This is it. This is his last
Yeah,
drive."
Well, he kept on. He
just
kept on
kept
doing
on-
this thing where he would have
yeah.
like 2 bad plays and then he would run out of it and be like, "Well, all right, I guess
I guess this is
At this
fine.
point, it's one of those things where you can't take him out until he does something really stupid, and he hasn't. At this point, but I guess my fundamental problem is I worry that he's going to.
And final question is: Dan Mullen's QB putting up 6 TDs make him the unquestionable QB whisperer?
Absolutely. So I think he should have a permanent contract. His contract which should be for like 30 years.
Make him AD. Keep him forever. He's in charge now. He's the boss. Be your own girl boss, Dan Mullen. Be your own girl boss. You want to see us out? That's a show.
Yeah. That is the show.
We did
Great
it.
to have you all here. This has been Chapel Bell Curve. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else you can subscribe to a podcast. You can get in touch with us on Facebook by searching Chapel Bell Curve, by email at chapelbellcurve@gmail.com, and on Twitter and Instagram at Chapel Bell Curve. If you'd like to support this podcast, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Chapel Bell Curve. If you enjoyed today's episode in particular, we'd love you to leave us a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you want to on the Park Hall bathroom wall graffiti style. But
I won't find
we will
it.
catch you this weekend. Yeah, we probably won't find it, but you could do it. We'll catch you this weekend in the Classic City for the last time this year.
Oh yeah.
But until then,
Go dogs.
go dogs.
Ha. Go dogs. Tiki-tiki-tiki-dee. Yeah, yeah, yeah.